Hello, I just wiped myself in the face. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books, so if you like people talking about books, hit that subscribe button. The book that I have got for you today is The Eve Illusion by Tom and Giovanna Fletcher. I love the concept of this story so much. I love a good dystopian future. I love kind of seeing the world falling apart. Is that weird to say? I think it's because it's the idea of, especially with a lot of dystopian futures being based on history and how we shouldn't be repeating it, and I think that's a very, very interesting conversation to be having at the moment. In the first book you are introduced to Eve. She is the first daughter to be born in about 50 years, and up to this point I think people are just so desperate and they're realising that the human race is going to die out, and then Eve is born to an elderly couple. Her mother dies in childbirth, her father... Oh, there's so much to unpack in it. I'll read you the blurb and we'll go on from there. Eve is the last girl on Earth. For the last 16 years, Eve has been a prisoner, guarded by the mothers, trapped by her fate, watched by the world, until she took her chance and escaped. Eve finally has the freedom she has wanted for so long, and with Bram she has the love. But both come at a price. Is this dangerous new world beyond the tower, the regime is only ever one step behind, and together with the desperate rebel group fighting against them, Eve has found herself in more danger than she ever could have imagined. With everything stacked against them, can Eve and Bram survive? This book, it overlaps with book 1, so it's the end of the book you see Eve escape from the tower, and the beginning of this book you're seeing that escape from another character's point of view. So in the first book it was just Eve and Bram, those were the point of views you were seeing. In this one we've also got Michael, who is a guard in the tower. So I can't remember how much I said in the first one because I'm sure it was a short video because it was a Christmas one, and so I was not saying much on purpose. Obviously, with this being the second book, I imagine that anybody watching this will have read the first one, so I feel like that if there is anybody who hasn't read the first book, there will most likely be spoilers for the first book here. In the first book you see Eve growing up in the tower, and you know, you see her life and the illusion, because it ties into this one, and the illusion of her life and the illusion of what she's looking out on. But basically, at the end of the last book, Eve realises that everything that she thought was real was a lie. The view from her tower, it feels like I'm talking about Rapunzel, but the view from her tower she realises is a complete illusion, and that's how she manages to make her escape. She's just like, oh, I'm not looking down at a beautiful world, this is literally just a backdrop that I can walk on, and she uses that to escape. I just love this concept so much. I think there were a couple of clunky bits. There was a couple of little bits where it wasn't completely clear who was talking. As I said, you've got 3 point of views in this one. So I imagine, as with the first book, that you've got Giovanna writing the Eve chapters, and then you've got Tom writing the male chapters. So Tom will be writing the Bram and the Michael chapters. Having said that, there's a very clear narrative there, so you can tell when you're with Michael and when you're with Bram. Obviously they've got completely different storylines as well, because Bram is with Eve through that storyline, so you've got Eve and Bram's storyline outside of the tower with the Free Evers. Are they Freevers or are they Free Evers? That is the question. In my mind I was calling them the Free Evers, but it could just be Freevers. Does it sound like I'm saying anything different? Anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this book because I'll be leaving in about half an hour to go get my vaccine. So the entire storyline of Eve being the first girl born in 50 years. It's such a cool concept to think about. The fact that Eve is the last daughter to be born, it means that everybody is focusing on Eve. It's like she's like the centre of this massive reality programme. The entire world is watching Eve, and in the first book it was about kind of trying to set her up with someone because they wanted her to get pregnant. They thought if she was the last girl to be born, is there a chance that she might have a daughter? Now, scientifically, that doesn't make any sense, because it's the man that determines the gender of the baby. Yes, Henry VIII was his own downfall. It's very, very interesting concept to see how it goes and where it's going to go after this. It does make you think about what will happen when Eve has children of her own. I'll just say that. Which I think is what the next book is going to be focusing on. I think the next book is going to be focusing on Eve and her potential growing family. Yeah, this is in romance, fantasy, science fiction, futuristic adventure, and its target audience is young adult 15 plus. It says 15 plus, but I think some younger teenagers would appreciate it. I wouldn't say it's a children's book because there is a lot of darkness there. I mean, it is a dystopian future, so there's no language in it. It's a bit Hunger Gamesy in a way. So I'll say it like that, which makes sense because that was a dystopian future as well. But it is kind of got a Hunger Games feel to it because it's like the entire world is watching this one person and they're depending on her to influence the rest of their futures. So if you look at it like that, it does make you think about Hunger Games. Eve and Katniss are kind of a similar heroine in a way. There were certain twists in here that I definitely did not see coming. And looking back on it, I was just like, yeah, I never would have seen that coming. So props to the Fletchers for giving us something which was a proper twist. And to be honest, I almost want to read it again just to see if there were any little kind of plants in there to give you an idea about where it was going to go when it does come out, about the people at the top who have kind of been organising everything. It really was just a case of, yeah, I just did not see that coming. It's interesting to try to not talk about that twist, especially when it looks like... I'll just say this. It's interesting in this story to see a man hide behind a powerful woman. I don't know if that makes any sense, or if that even works. If you think of it kind of like the Wizard of Oz, maybe. You know, the whole thing of don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. That's where I'm going with that man hiding behind the woman thing. It's like the woman is the curtain. It doesn't make any sense. There is a man hiding behind the curtain. I'll just say that. In the lead up to the reveal, as it were, you have technically been given a hint about it because you are introduced to the concept of what happened earlier in the book, but it wasn't like spelled out. See, the cogs are turning in my brain because I know what I'm talking about, but I imagine this makes completely no sense to you if you have not read it. It's a lot to unpack, but it's so good. It's such a good concept, and I'll admit there were one or two times in the second half, I think it was around about the time when there was a chapter where it just became a little bit confusing on the dialogue about who was talking, and so I kind of had to reread it and say, oh, was it Bram talking there, or was it Michael, or was it this other guy? It just kind of brief moment of just a little bit of clunkiness, but overall this is a brilliant book, a brilliant series, and I can't wait to know what the next one is. I don't even know if they've announced it, because the first book was Eve of Man, this one is the Eve Illusion, and oh god, the fact that I've already used the word illusion quite a few times in this kind of review, there was a moment towards the end where, because of a certain twist about one of the characters towards the end of the book, there was a second towards the end of the book where I thought that twist was going to apply to Eve as well. Fortunately, it didn't go in the direction I thought it was going to, because if it had gone the other way, it would have been a proper Eve illusion in a way. It's just so good. This chilling dystopia is at heart a love story, and the vivid characterisation has you rooting for the duo from page one. This was made on Sunday Children's Book of the Month. I wouldn't call this a children's book. It says target audience young adult 15 plus. I do think that younger teenagers would enjoy it. I mean, I certainly would have as a teenager, because I loved this kind of thing. Because obviously it's got that kind of dystopian, futuristic adventure type thing going on. But as I said, you know, there is a love story there, because you're looking at the relationship between Bram and Eve and how that was, because you see that storyline being nurtured in the first one, and then you see where it goes, and at the end of this book you kind of think about where that's going to go in the next book. I definitely think that bringing in Michael's narrative definitely helped to kind of flesh it out a bit more, because in this book, because in the first book you were looking at Eve and Bram from different sides. You got Eve inside her kind of area looking out from the tower, and you had Bram as being kind of one of the people who was kind of like looking after Eve, but she didn't really know who he was. And then in this one you've got Eve and Bram together outside of the tower because they've escaped, but then you're still getting information from Michael who's on the inside, so you're still getting the full story of kind of what's happening on the inside and what's happening on the outside, which was kind of the bounce of the first book, and then it just expands that more in the second book. It's 400 pages long. It was released July last year. I just caught sight of my cat. Look at that cat. Oh boy. Yeah, so that's the Eve Illusion. I love this series so much. I can't wait to see where they go with this in the next one. Yeah, apparently it is supposed to come out this year, the next one, but at the moment it's as yet untitled. It just says Untitled Eve of Man Book 3 coming 2021. So I am so looking forward to seeing where that last one goes, because it does say it's a trilogy, so there's 3 books. I've done the first 2 and this is the 3rd one. I am so excited to read the rest of it. Yeah, so if you like anything kind of dystopian future-y, you'll definitely like this. It's got a bit of sci-fi kind of thing going on with this one. Obviously it's a romance. Aren't all stories romance at the end of the day? My dad is a big sci-fi fan, and whenever I ask him what he's watching on the Sci-Fi Channel, he always says, oh, it's a love story really. That's my dad for you. Anyway, so I've got about 20 minutes before I need to leave to get my vaccine, so I should probably go and make sure I've drunk enough, because I think I've had 1 cup of tea so far today, and that is not enough to keep me hydrated, especially on a very, very hot day, because I spent the last 2 days in the sun, so I feel like I have got a little bit of colour, which is nice because usually I'm see-through. I anticipate a storm, because it is feeling very muggy today. It's like, is it like 22 at the moment? I want to Google what my current temperature is. Yeah, it's 20 degrees at the moment. But it's just very cloudy, and it feels like it's going to be rain or a storm at some point. So that was The Eve Illusion by Tom and Giovanna Fletcher. Very, very good book. As I said, dystopian future, romance, sci-fi. It's kind of got a bit of everything for everybody. If that sounds like your cup of tea, I definitely recommend this book. I'll pop a link in the description to where you can find it. I'm also reading The Break by Marion Keyes at the moment. This is the one that I take to work with me, and I'm just slightly over halfway through. This one is a very long book. I don't think I quite realised how long it was. It's 660 pages, this book. But I'm making my way through that in a timely fashion. So thank you for watching. I'll have another video for you next week. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Obviously I read books, I sing. Now I am back working at the theatre. I'm hoping to talk about shows a bit more. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week with another video. Bye.